This is Leaders in the Trenches, and your host today is Gene Hammett.
Hi, my name is Gene Hammett. I'm the host of Leaders in the Trenches. My big question for you today is, what is your real cost of retention? What does it cost you when someone leaves before you're ready for them to leave? What does it cost you when someone has been trained, they have know the processes, they know the people and the relationships, and they actually leave to go find another job or do something else? Well, that cost of retention is something that is hidden. There's not a line item on your P&L about what the cost is so that you can see how expensive retention is. The cost of retention is something I've been looking at and studying. So I've got an expert that I wanted to bring on just for you to help you walk through some of the very specific elements of cost. That is, we have Stephen King here. Stephen is with Growth Force. That is an outsourced accounting company for profit companies, and they do a lot of analysis on what is the real cost of retention. So we talk about the day. One of the things I like most about this is uncovering some of those hidden areas, some of the things that you haven't thought of as a leader about what actually goes into replacing someone, getting them back up to speed once you have someone that leaves. A lot of experts will say that it costs you 1 times or 2 times your salary. Well, we dive into the cost of retention in today's episode with Stephen King. Here's the interview. Hi, Stephen. How are you?
I'm good, Gene.
Well, it's good to have you here at Leaders in the Trenches.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, I wanted to start off with, tell us a little bit about you and who you serve.
So Growth Force is one of the nation's largest outsourced bookkeeping, accounting, and controller services for companies that use QuickBooks or Netflix. Our ideal client is a service business who makes money on its people, because we've really focused on helping to do project accounting and time-driven, activity-based costing, job costing, so you can see where your people spend their time and the cost of that time and compare it against the revenue they generate. So you can see profitability by customer, by job, by team, by any way you want to see profitability.
Now, I guess I'm curious. I know I'm using QuickBooks right now. Does QuickBooks have that capability to do that level of reporting?
It does, and it all can be automated. So you can integrate your time tracking with your payroll and allocate your labor costs based on your timesheets, literally with a click of a button. We have a QuickBooks consulting division that specializes in unleashing the power of QuickBooks. Like, you probably use QuickBooks the way people use Excel, right? To add, subtract, multiply, and divide, and never think about pivot tables. Well, there's a lot more to QuickBooks than paying bills, making deposits, and reconciling bank accounts, and we know how to do that.
Well, I wanted to have you on here because I work a lot with service-based businesses, and I think a lot of people tuning in here probably have employees that are in the service world. Mm-hmm. And there's one big issue that goes on. We talked about it briefly a couple of weeks ago, and that's retention. So why is retention such an important issue from your perspective?
Well, it's one of the biggest costs in a business, and it's a hidden cost. You don't see one line item that says, cost of turnover on your P&L. Yet, since our businesses are run by tribal knowledge, when a member of the tribe leaves, so does the knowledge. And the AICPA, I'm a CPA, and the AICPA, through its CGMA, did a report on valuing the human dimension. And what they suggested was that publicly traded companies should have a footnote disclosure of employee turnover. And even further, they said 68% of the value in a business is its people, which is why that turnover cost is so important. And the value is in the tribal knowledge of the processes, of the intellectual property, the technology. It's the relationships with the customer and the vendors. And it's understanding the vision of the business and how do you execute it. And the companies that are wildly profitable and successful and that really succeed are the ones that build high-performing teams that stay together for 10 years. And the ones that struggle, like those 80% of businesses that don't make it in 5 years, well, that's because they really don't get to keep that knowledge in the business.
I study the fastest growing companies out there, the top 1%. These are the ones on the Inc. 5000 year over year. And I work with them as an advisor. And the number they're most proud of is not their revenue growth. it is their retention number.
Yeah.
And because I see the value, just like you're talking about, the tribal nature of this, and passing on relationships and knowledge, and the companies that do that well will continue to outperform those others. Have you seen that as well?
100%. We have a people scorecard that we deliver to our clients, which shows you the revenue per hour paid. And you can watch when someone walks out the door, that revenue number drop. And then it takes 90 to 120 days after that person has been replaced and then trained to get the revenue back to the same level. And what we did, because we really specialize, we believe strongly that you need a financial management strategy and a human capital strategy in order to build a high-performing team and a profitable business. And
well,
so
David, let's look at some of the hard cost of that, because I'd love for our audience to be able to look at this for themselves. So where do we start to understand the cost of retention?
This is something that we have really spent a lot of time focusing on, and actually we did the math. I looked at it for Growth Force. Our number one metric for success is employee turnover. It's not top line revenue, just like you said, Gene. And I'm glad to be in the peer group of your colleagues. The cost of turnover, when we look at actual cash that goes out the door, we studied a average $60,000 staff accountant and looked at when a staff accountant or degreed accountant walks out the door, how much does it cost us? And it's a minimum of 50% of their salary. If the worst case happens, which it does, it can be as much as 200% of the salary. So the first direct out-of-pocket cost is in the agency fee. You got to hire somebody to help you with that recruiting. There's going to be somewhere around a 20% commission to the agency. So on a $60,000 salary, that's $12,000 right out the door. There is a 12% premium when you make an external hire, according to statistics. So if you're going to promote from within, you'll be able to pay a little bit less. But if you don't, because there's such a shortage of knowledge workers, it costs $10,000 more of higher salary when you have to replace that person. Then the big thing that was surprising to me is when you have to do recruiting, who is doing the recruiting for you? It's your most valuable people, the most senior people, the one who are doing the work the best. See, now you're taking them out of production, out of billable time, and you're putting them in a windowless conference room to do recruiting. We found that cost $3,750 out of pocket that I'm spending on salaries. That's not the opportunity cost. It's just the cost of having them not be billable, paying their salaries. And then you've got to have when somebody leaves, you got morale issues. And you got to pay PTO when somebody walks out the door. You got to place an ad in the paper. You got to have some spot bonuses for the people who are working overtime or whose morale goes down. All that added up to $32,000 of pure cash walking out the door. That's just the direct cost. Now you take the indirect cost, and when you look at that, I have taken those people out of billable time, and we have a 60-day training program. I've now lost $25,000 of billable work with one manager now having to train a new staff accountant. Then we actually have training staff and coursework that we have to get people up to speed over 90 days. That cost me $30,000 to have the most senior people in the company doing the training of the new staff. And if they lose one client, because people buy from people, right? You don't buy from companies. The opportunity to lose one client would cost us $30,000. And when you add up those costs, that's another $60,000 to $90,000. When you add that up with the $32,000 out of pocket cost, you can be as much as 200% of somebody's salary. In this case, $120,000 of lost profits.
Hi there, this is Gene. I'm the host of Leaders in the Trenches. I wanted to give you a free gift. I've been working with Audible for almost a year now because my book published last year, and I've been listening to Audible books for probably 3 or 4 years. I really love it, and I wanted to give you a free gift. If you want a 30-day free trial of Audible, all you have to do is go to audibletrial.com/Leaders in the Trenches. That will give you access to any book you want. You don't have to buy The Trap of Success, which is my book. You can buy any book you want. So if there's something you've been wanting to read, just don't have time, make sure you go to audibletrial.com/Leaders in the Trenches. All right, back to the interview. That's incredible. And I know that I've seen this happen firsthand, but you added a few more things that I haven't thought of. And I know you put in there the recruiting fee, and someone's got to interview them, and usually they're going through 5 different interviews, right? Or maybe in some cases it might be 10. And that just takes time. And in a smaller company, the owner, the founder is going to do their time with them. So that might be another 30 minutes, whatever that time's worth. So there's a lot of things we could probably keep adding on to this. That's the reason it's so complex.
Right. And what's interesting is that people join companies and they quit bosses. And the reason why there's turnover in most businesses is because person was hired wrong in the first place. And there's 2 factors there. Number one, most small businesses recruit for skills to pay the bills. And what you need to do is you have to have the skills, but you want to hire for cultural fit. You want to find out what are the behaviors that are successful in the business and recruit for those behaviors. The second reason why people quit is because they don't have career development opportunities. They're not going to be able to grow. We have this innate need in Maslow's hierarchy of needs for self-actualization. And so if you recruit somebody for behaviors and cultural fit, and then you invest in their career path, you're going to see a significant reduction in your turnover costs. The accounting industry, I'm president of the Houston CPA Society and chair the strategic planning committee, so I saw a lot of nationwide data on the cost of turnover. And the average small business in America has 19% turnover. We were able to get it down to just over 6% by hiring correctly, and then by investing in people's skills, not necessarily giving them promotions, because a lot of small businesses, you can't promote everybody. But if we teach them new skills, if we give them challenges, if we give them an opportunity to contribute their God-given talents, then you'll find that people wake up in the morning looking forward to do that. But the secret sauce here, and we wrote this ebook, The CEO's Guide to Increasing Profits, and we identified the 5 steps to doing this. Employee turnover was a big part of it. The secret was step 5, recognition and reward.
I was going to ask you about that because I've been working with a client on recognition and reward, and you seeing a lot of companies. And I reminded these leaders, I said, sometimes it doesn't take a lot of money. Sometimes it's just a little bit of intentional thought. What are you seeing as works in a retention or the reward and recognition side of this?
Well, I'll start with what's the one thing not to do. If your listeners take one thing is that, I keep coming back to Maslow and the hierarchy of needs, and we all want to be loved, right? We want to feel like we're part of something bigger than ourselves. So how do you accomplish that? Well, first, Harvard did a landmark case study that showed that 82 companies that have written goals have an 82% higher chance of success. And what was surprising to me when I read the study was you expect you're going to get increased alignment. But what was surprising was how much more discretionary effort you get from people because they want to be part of a team. And if they understand how their team fits into the success of the department and the department's success fits into the company goals and why it's good for them if the team, the department, and the company succeed, you're going to get people who are more motivated at work. The second thing is that when if you recognize and reward the people who contribute the most profits, that speaks to that highest level, which is self-actualization and esteem. We want to feel good about ourselves. You want to feel like you're making a difference. And so the simple act of, we're an Insperity client, and we learned from them to the simple act of teaching your managers to catch someone doing something right instead of doing something wrong makes a big difference. Pay attention to me. And so we have this kudos at growthforce.com. And it's a great idea where you send an email out anytime anyone catches something doing something right. And then at our company meetings, we recognize those people and we reward them, not with cash. Gene, just like you said, it's not about the cash, about making them feel important among their peers.
Yeah. And everyone begins to pay attention to what those things are that get them there. And so I'm a very competitive person. So I would be like, how do I get my name on that board? How do I get recognized there?
Exactly.
Are you seeing similar types of responses there?
You know, but Gino Wickman in his book Traction talks about how what management monitors gets done. So what do you want to get done? Well, if you want people to, we have a core value of teamwork. If you want to have all your team working together, then you need to reward people who demonstrate those core values. And by sharing that with the management team, and then of course, every time I see a kudos email, I immediately respond, thanking them for being so great. That's a dopamine challenge or chart, right? That's where somebody gets that feedback loop that we're all craving. And so we see it, PricewaterhouseCoopers did a study that showed that the median return on investment for people who invested in performance coaching, which is different from performance reviews, was 700%. And Gallup's study showed that when you invest in recognition systems, you're going to decrease your employee turnover by 58%. It's big.
Yeah, and go back to that. I mean, you're looking at the line items here. If you do provide some recognitions, it's very small compared to the impact that it's having. Maybe it's $100 gift certificate, or it's a trophy that cost you $17 that you pass around. Because I've seen this happen. Just like they're just so little in the amount of money for the value that it brings back.
That's 100% right. It is a really big ROI from investing in recognition. Now, performance reviews, I think, are an important part of this because this is all in the context of helping you lower your employee turnover. And we put that at the top of our people scorecard. So you look at a company scorecard to show you your top line revenue, your bottom line net income, and the gross profit, and what drives that. And it's people that drive profits. And so when you look at the performance review process, what we suggest is that shouldn't be a trip to the principal's office. If their performance is not where you want it to be, of course, that's the first thing you want to be discussing, but that should be happening every day. The performance review process isn't about a chance to get each individual's career goals aligned with the company goals. And that alignment and understanding of why the line of sight between how your activities and behaviors each day drive success for the company and for you is a game changer, because then people start acting like owners. They start giving you discretionary area. They're not going to want to let the team down. And so that performance review shouldn't just be once a year, canned questions with weak goals that are not measurable, and no training for the supervisor on how to do those goals. If you have simple things like stop, start, continue. What should a supervisor asking the employee, what should I stop doing because it makes it hard for you to achieve your personal goals? What should I start doing to help you be more successful? And what would you like me to continue doing? You're going to find that people like their boss. And if you like your boss, you're less likely to quit. And that's one of the other big secrets here is get trained on how to do a performance review process, because people join companies and they quit bosses. And if your bosses don't know how to motivate, you're going to lose people.
It's like you're reading my notes that I'm putting together for my next book. We touched on so many different issues today. One of the big ones is ownership. I don't know how familiar you are with my work, Stephen, but I have studied over 300 companies around what's making them grow. And it's not the specific marketing or sales strategies. It is a leadership that inspires people to feel like owners. And you mentioned that, and that's everything kind of stems from that we're talking about in retention. you're going to lose the people who don't feel like they're a part of that tribe and don't have ownership in what they're doing and not gaining their skills and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So I really appreciate you being here. I know you do so much for other service-based companies. I'd love for you to take just a couple of minutes to share with us around, the key needs for having the right outsource accounting, and maybe even why you shouldn't be doing it with your own internal team, and you should have a complete team that you hire for that.
Well, I grew this business out of my frustration as a CPA serving my small business clients to try and do their tax return 30 years ago, and realized that most of our small businesses, their bookkeepers self-taught, and they don't know what they don't know. And there's so much wasted effort by their staff. And then as the business owner, all they're getting is the basics. They get an income statement and a balance sheet for last month or last quarter that is not actionable. They can't do anything with it. And so what we do is we have an a la carte menu of services of advanced bookkeeping, management accounting, and controller and CFO services to help you to be able to pick and choose what you need when you need it. And it can go up and go down on a monthly basis. What that does is it's designed to help you have actionable financial intelligence to make decisions that drive profits. Are you pricing your jobs right? Do you know which are your least profitable clients and should be fired? How do you spend money on sales and marketing? What's going to give you the biggest ROI? How do you increase the productivity of your people through these manager reports? And we've combined this by working with the in-house staff, the bookkeeper or the controller that you already have, and complement them with this smart back office, a QuickBooks-centric ecosystem that automates the entire back office. And the nice part is it's typically 30 to 40% less than what it costs you to do it yourself. And you get a team of a bookkeeper, a staff accountant, and a controller. So you reduce the risk of fraud on top of all of that. So it's all about, I called it growth force, in order to be a force to help businesses run better, grow faster, and most importantly, make more money.
Well, Stephen, I appreciate you sharing that with us today. I think it's been very insightful on many levels. You added a few new touches to the cost of retention, and we actually talked a little bit about how do you actually impact that across the new hires and across retaining everyone through the right rewards and recognition. So thanks for being here at Leaders in the Trenches.
Thanks for having me, Gene.
Well, that was really powerful. A lot of things that I didn't even realize should go into the cost of retention is included inside that interview. So when you think about your retention rate, you want to make sure that you are doing everything possible. When I talked to Matt Schuyler, the CHRO for Hilton, over 400,000 employees, they knew that a 1% increase in retention rate would actually benefit the company by millions and millions of dollars. It really took my breath away. I did a quick calculation on average salary times 1% of their workforce, and it was astronomical. So I don't know how many employees you have, but the cost of retention is something you need to pay attention to. If you have any questions about that, part of the work I do with my wife, who is a millennial expert, Amanda Hammett, I actually go into companies, or we go into companies, and determine what the cost of retention is, and we look at strategies to help you improve that. So we do this all around the recruiting and retaining rock stars in your company. So if you have any questions about that, make sure you reach out to gene@genehammett.com. Well, this wraps up this episode. As always, lead with courage, and I'll see you next time.